Hey y'all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Skylong GK87 Pro. This is a highly customizable mechanical keyboard that includes a optional modular LCD display on the side that can show you some status, including the current time and date, the battery percentage remaining, as well as whether you're using Bluetooth or wired connectivity, and you can even push over a picture or an animation wallpaper onto the side for further customization. So this is a kind of modular piece that you can add on, and it comes in two versions, a 1.7-inch screen version and also a 2-inch screen version that we have here in front of us, which has a slightly different spec when it comes to the resolution as well. And again, if you prefer not having the display on there, you can also omit it altogether. And even the switches can be completely hot swapped and adjusted based on your preferences. So again, very easy to customize. So out of the box, you have options including Gatoron red switches, Gatoron yellow, as well as Gatoron brown. It is, of course, a RGB keyboard, so you can see it in the dark as well, and pretty much universal plug and play, including support for Windows, Mac, even Android and iPads. Claims to be very responsive, so if you are using it for a bit of gaming, it should react quite quickly as well, and even has an interesting split spacebar design, so depending on if you're pressing down with your left thumb or your right thumb, it might feel even more responsive there, as well as customizable dials there on the top above the optional display that you can use to change things like media volume, as well as assign controls for things like zoom in and zoom out. There are some magnetic accessories, including a kind of sticker pack that is included in the box that you can pop on there, as well as a 7,200 milliamp hour capacity battery that is rated to last over 500 hours with the backlight turned off. In typical usage, getting you around a month or so before you have to really plug it in again, and of course it supports their companion software that you can use to further customize the individual LED lights underneath all of the keys, as well as macro controls for assigning different shortcut commands can also be set up. Even the casing comes in two color variants. If you don't like the clean kind of white finish here, there's also a darker shade that has these red accents that makes it pop a little bit more in that gamer aesthetic. So anyways, packaging here is pretty simple, and on the inside we have just a quick user guide, again documenting that this is a tri-mode keyboard. You can use it in the wired USB mode for the fastest latency. You can also use it in the wireless Bluetooth for more convenience, as well as 2.4G using a USB nano receiver that you plug into your computer. And the accessories include the aforementioned magnetic end cap, which has the Skylong logo and the GK87 branding that you can optionally pop on or off. And this thing is actually crafted out of a solid chunk of aluminum alloy. Now in here we also have a USB cable, so this is for charging or using it in the wired mode, simple USB Type-C to Type-A. And there's also going to be the keycap holder and some additional replacement keycaps if you ever want to change the accent colors. There's also a second spacebar, which is a traditional layout as opposed to being split, that you can pick between based on your preferences. And up top here, you even get some replacement key switches. These are the Glacier Cube Ice switches, and they are translucent, as you can tell there, and they're supposed to be linear, as well as very quiet, almost silent in fact, as you're pressing on it. So good for office. It doesn't sound as distracting to those around you, but still gets you a pretty good sensation as you're using it. So this is kind of their fourth option for switches that you can pick between. It just snaps into the plate of the keyboard. They're using these two kind of prongs, as you can tell there. And other accessories are inclusive of another adapter that transforms USB Type-C into a full-size Type-A. There's another little magnetic end piece that you can snap on optionally. This is, by the way, what that modular display will look like if you want to pick that up. We'll take a closer look at it in a moment, and just again uses these Pogo contacts to snap into place, or of course you can pop it off using some of the clips there. And it looks like it has a USB Type-C port on the side. For example, if you're not popping it onto the keyboard, you can still use it as a detached tiny display on your desk, kind of an interesting mode. And we even have some replacement silicone dampeners, which are a part of the build inside if that part ever wears down. First impressions of the keyboard itself is that this thing definitely looks quite different, very boxy in its aesthetics, having this almost retro vibe going on. Main frame is constructed out of polycarbonate plastic, but has a surprising heft to it, feels quite sturdy, and otherwise you can tell that the screen when turned on will go through an animation loop, so you can program and push over other wallpapers that you prefer using the optional companion app, just making it kind of more of an interesting conversation starter slash desk gadget when it's on the display mode, as you can tell there. And these dials up top that are customizable are crafted out of metal. They feel pretty precise as you are moving them around. And spacebar here is interestingly very rounded. First impressions of the key switches being that It feels well stabilized. There's not a lot of rattling or inconsistency between the keys, including the spacebar. All feels the same, regardless of where you're pressing, and it doesn't really sound too loud. In fact, it's super quiet, almost silent there. On the edge is where we have the nano receiver built on in. So this is for the optional 2.4G if you're using it in that connectivity mode. It just hides away like so. And if you want to cover it up, that's where the optional magnetic end piece there will kind of fit itself into place with the Skylong logo there. Looks quite good. And then on the very back, by default, it is fully revealed if you want more of that cyberpunk transparent look, but if you want to hide all of these screws, you can then pop on the other cover and it will look something like this. It stays in place quite well using those magnets, and we have just the Type-C port for charging or for wired mode, and also going between those three connectivity options just by using the dial over here. So looking quite good. And if we take a closer look at the back, you can tell there are going to be some soft touch rubber feet, preventing it from sliding around on the surface or desk, as well as an optional elevated kickstand to give you an even more ergonomic angle as you are popping it onto a flat surface. Now here's also a quick look at that display, just by zooming in a little bit more. Again, this optional replacement piece that we have shows the difference between the 1.7-inch screen that is on here by default versus the 2-inch size screen, a little bit larger of the other variant. As you can tell, they're side by side. But interestingly, the 2-inch screen version is a little bit more off-centered compared to completely in the middle for the 1.7-inch version. And all you need to do is just kind of press on this to pop it out. And you can see underneath it looks very similar to regular slots that you have on the other keys, but it just has those contacts in the middle there for the display to function. The 1.7-inch screen here also has the same USB Type-C port that we saw on the 2-inch size version, so those dimensions and fit and finish are going to be pretty much identical. So let's pop in the 2-inch size screen version next, just by giving it a little bit of a push. And there it goes. It turns on to life just a split second later, and then cycles through the same animations built into the keyboard's memory that you can then customize yourself later on. Looking quite good, just a slightly larger surface area to work with. That being said, the screen here is not touch sensitive, so just keep that in mind. And just have pretty decent viewing angles. And now for a quick look at the keycaps, just by popping it out. So by default, it's still going to be the same kind of crystal ice glacier type that we saw in some of the included extras. It's just a replacement for it. So there we go. It definitely is super quiet. So it for sure won't be distracting to those around you if you're working in a shared space. At the same time, they do feel, again, very responsive because of the linear nature. There's no kind of extra bounce to the keys, and still feels pretty satisfying as you're typing on it as a whole. Compared to, again, regular chiclet keyboards, you're technically able to achieve slightly higher accuracy and typing speeds, and overall still is fun and enjoyable to use. Now, a closer look here. The escape key by default, interestingly, has kind of this step ladder effect, but included in the box out of the replacement keycaps includes a version which is completely flat if you prefer that version instead, and then we have some of the function keys up top as well. So the layout is pretty decent. The only missing element would be a dedicated numpad, but that's kind of occupied by the knobs as well as the extra screen here on the side. And now moving into some of the specific modes and profiles, if we kind of dim the lights around us, you'll be able to see that the keycaps here do shine through all the way. So here's a view in complete darkness as example. And to cycle through some of the display modes, right now we have kind of a typing speed curve represented as clicks or key presses per minute. So for example, if you press kind of at a slower rate, this serves as a baseline, and then much faster, you can see the curve start to spike versus then kind of dropping down again as our speed slows down. I guess if you're a speed typist or trying to really practice to improve your typing speed, this might be useful to have as a gauge. And going over to the next mode, we're able to have a snapshot of the battery percentage remaining, time info, as well as some status, including whether you are in the Bluetooth mode or in the wired mode, and what specific OS version that you want to be using it in, such as Windows shortcuts versus Mac OS shortcuts. That can also be checked here at a glance. And then further cycling into the wallpaper mode there again. So pretty easy to use. And now for the different lighting profiles, we can tap on function as well as the plus and minus keys to cycle through. Some of those profiles, including breathing, you're able to play around with there. and they're pretty easy to customize, all look quite attractive and vibrant. You can also tap on the plus key, by the way, to go into some other modes, including a memory mode, which is going to be reactive. After a few seconds, the light then goes away. One more into kind of a rippling pattern, which is also reactive. As you tap, it will spiral outwards and then disappear. And then once more here, is reacting to sound using a built-in microphone. It's all looking quite attractive. Of course, all the animations here you can also further change in terms of whether you want the transition speed to be faster or slower, even pausing onto a single frame or completely speeding it up, as you can tell there, and also the brightness. This is the maximum, but you can also make it dimmer and dimmer if you are in a slightly darker environment, you want to consume less power. In terms of the Bluetooth profile, you are able to connect up to 2 devices simultaneously, which is a little bit less than on some of the other models we've seen in the past. It gives you around 3 or even 5 profiles at certain cases. On here, it's basically the function 1 and 2 keys that you can use to pair between, say, a phone and a computer, and then quickly switch back and forth between those 2 sources. That being said, connectivity in terms of Bluetooth tended to be pretty responsive and fast. Tapping on the keys over here, you can tell it's pretty much instantaneous, and everything will then pop onto the display of your device. So there's not too much latency, especially for things like typing and emails. You should be perfectly all right. Of course, if you are doing things like gaming, though, where every frame rate and millisecond there counts, you may want to use it in the wired mode. So there we have it. That's the Skylong GK87 Pro, their flagship compact mechanical keyboard here in 2024. Very easy to customize and also very quirky. So if you do like the way it looks, I would say this is going to be one of the more fully featured models that just adds a bit more personality and customization to your desk setup. So you can check out more details if you are interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the pretty unique Skylong GK87 Pro